I'm Kim Con, and I'm the executive director at the North Dakota Council on the Arts. And with us is Jessica Hawks, who is in New Rockford. And we'll go around in a minute. I just want to kind of get us started. And I actually, Kimberly, would you like to say anything in terms of welcome or?
Yes, well, yeah, thank you everybody who has made the time to jump on the webinar for the North Dakota Council on the Arts in talking about the arts across the prairie. And we value your time and just thank you for being here.
I second that. We value your time. I did leave my office and then I thought, no, wait, don't leave yet. You have to talk to people tonight.
I did the same thing. This is a late one for us. We're an hour later than you are.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to show you, which I think gives a really concise story about what Arts Across the Prairie is. The idea came about from a 2019 Main Street convening here in Bismarck. And at that convening, we had I think we had over 220 people attend a 3-hour workshop, which for NDCA is a lot of people. So we were both very happy, but the ideas that came out of that session, which was, how do we really involve our rural communities? How do we utilize creative processes to bring communities together across county lines? So we're going to talk a little bit about counties. We're going to talk about the region as a whole. As I said, the conference was the birth of this idea, and we're going to show you where we are along the way. And then we're going to show a couple of examples about what placemaking is, because that is what this program is based on. And then we're going to take questions, because Region 8, where you are, is going to get started. And in order to get started, we need your participation in building a group of stakeholders who will feel their ownership in the program, I think, and help to steer the program. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how it fits in with the statewide project too. So
Should I get the?
Yeah, let's hit play, and we'll Jessica and I are gonna team tag over who is talking. So we've been working on this, and we really want it to be simple and clear. So if in fact there is anything that isn't, please ask questions, and you can wave at us. I can't see everybody all at one time. Or you can put your question in the chat and I'll keep checking it, and then we'll open it up. So Arts Across the Prairie is the name of the program. It is statewide. We are the first statewide placemaking program in the country. We're also have a collaboration with NDOT, NDDOT, tourism, and the state legislature. So it's a 7-year program. It started in 19, and we have a budget of approximately $5 million. Next. So placemaking, it's again, the first of its kind. The idea is there are 8 regions in North Dakota. Nobody knows why there's 8 regions. There have been 8 regions for a long time. And a lot of the state agencies, Health and Human Services, Economic Development, they all use these 8 regions to kind of break down what North Dakota is made up of. So given that there are 8 regions, we're going to actually create 8 large-scale arts installations. So I want to talk about what they're made of later, but there will be one for each geographic region of the state. The most important thing, which I think is really directly related to placemaking, is that it's going to reflect the unique history, landscape, and cultural heritage. There's a very distinct difference between Region 4, Pembina, Walsh, Grand Forks County, way up there, and Beach, settled by different people, different kind of landscape. So we really want to look at the actual cultural heritage of each region. The idea, though, and this is about the only rule that NDCA has, that it will be placed in a rural location. And that means no buildings, no people. So that's kind of a what? We're gonna get there. We'll show you how we have. So Jessica, you want to take this?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very recognizable image, of course. This is something that anyone who's been down our interstate knows where this is located and what it represents. This is sort of what public art does. It's conceived for a particular place or community to be broadly accessible. And in this case, it's becomes kind of synonymous with the place. So it can take a variety of forms, sizes, and scales, and the art can be temporary or permanent. Now with Arts Across the Prairie, we're building permanent art installations with a perpetual fund for maintenance. I'm not sure how many years forward we have yet, but that is the plan, is that these will be long-term investments.
Okay.
And public art can include, as you said, murals, sculptures, memorials, and much more. There's so many options, and we'll show you some of the different things that have been done.
Go to the next one. So where we are, we started up in Region 1, which is the northwest, north corner of this state. And the place that was selected by the stakeholder group is called Writing Rock. Have any of you ever been up there to Writing Rock? Oh, no. Okay. You all need to take a little road trip up there. So my phone switched and said, "Welcome to Canada." And literally, when you're there, you are at the top of Divide County, almost at the edge of Montana on the left. Can you put the cursor over where we are? Yeah,
Here?
really, really far over. But we've received an Our Town grant that came from the National Endowment for the Arts. We also have received money from North Dakota Commerce, as well as the Andrus Charitable Foundation. And there's $15,000 left to raise. One of the things about Arts Across the Prairie is that almost always when there's federal money involved, which the NEA is, then you have to match it. But we're really close on the 15. So we're very excited because we're going to break ground in the spring. So the site was selected and it is secured. This is State Historical Society property, so it belongs to the state. The Writing Rock is 2 petroglyphs, which are in a very interesting rock structure to keep them safe, because at one point, one of the rocks disappeared. So it was returned, and we issued a request for proposal, and an artist was selected, and we're going to show you projects that he has put before the stakeholder group that they decided on. So it's a very historic site. It has a lot of significance. Artist is Thane Lund. There were 8 applicants for the project. 2 actually came from North Dakota. 2 from North Dakota, 1 from California, 2 from New York, and 2 from other states. And it turns out that Thane grew up in Crosby, which is very close to Writing Rock. So in a way, he wasn't judged on the fact that he was a local boy, because it was really about his design. he understands the significance of Writing Rock, the historic structure, the native connection, and the beautiful land that's up there. On the left, you can see that there is, and maybe Jessica, you can mark this right. So they're right in the center bottom near the circle. That's where Writing Rock is. Let's go up a little.
Right
So
here.
that's where that historic building is, the stone building that holds the two petroglyphs. And then behind it, you can see there's a white curvy line that leads down on the right side. And that there is where they actually have, there's a playground there, there's picnic tables, there's a covering, but the land that Thane is going to put the sculptural installation on is where it says artwork in the upper left corner. There's that shady gray area in the center is a beautiful grove of trees. They used to actually, when we think in the 40s and 50s, they used to hold church services in that grove of trees. And we're talking to the Historical Society about opening that up a little bit. Whether or not we can do that will be up to the bureaucracy of the Heritage Society. We will see. But here you can see what he submitted. It's low to the ground, although it is, I think at its highest point, 10 feet. But it is a little bit, on the upper right, you can see it from above. It kind of looks like an earbud in a way. But he's really talking about using native grasses, local boulders, and wildflowers. And it's a peaceful, contemplative place. Let's go to the next one. Okay, you want to cover this one?
So that was Region 1. Now we're crossing the state over to Region 4, which, as Kim mentioned, is up in the northeast with Pembina, Walsh, Nelson, and Grand Forks counties. They are the next furthest along of our 8 regions. For the past year and a half, the stakeholder group there has been active and meeting monthly. We meet over Zoom, so there's no travel involved for any of us. They have recently selected their site, and they chose the Dahlin Esker, a glacial formation out in the middle of the flat farmland, which of course is deep North Dakota history. All of our farmland was formed by glacial movement. So the Dahlin Esker is this lovely undulating risen area that goes quite a ways around the tiny former town of Dahlin. We have also submitted an Our Town grant for them. We haven't gotten that back yet. And we are in the process of drafting a request for artist proposals now. They will have that finished by next week, where we can start seeking artists to start submitting their ideas. So that's kind of the phase before where Region 1 was.
So I just want to point out on this map, all right, so we chose Region 1 first because there were 3 counties. And in my mind, big old North Dakota, in my mind, I thought, oh, 3 counties, that'll be much easier. Ha! There's so much space up there, it isn't funny. And then we go over to Pembina, Walsh, and Nelson, and Grand Forks in Region 4, and everybody's much more condensed, but it's still large, right? And now we'll show you where else we're working in Region 2. And the stakeholder group, it has been active. They are at the site, which we think that we have selected. They toured, I think, about 8 sites. And now we're going to be looking at how to secure the land and then develop concepts for artist proposal. And one of the things, see the nice highway going right in the middle of those 2 lakes? Those are called potholes.
Potholes, yep.
Potholes. So the road, though, that is going through the middle of them is a state highway. Now, if we put a project on a state highway, we get 100% money from DOT for a turnoff, parking lot, byway signage, and walkways. So after ending up on not a state highway in Region 1, we're kind of looking for state highways if possible, because that money will come in very, very useful.
We also want the traffic, of course, but yes, at this phase, we want the money.
Okay, let's look at the next one.
So here we are with you. Region 8 is next. I met earlier this week with Region 3, which is this other northern region. That's actually where I live. I'm in Eddy County. And they are at the same stage you are, where we are just starting now to develop our group of interested community members, our stakeholders. So as you can see here, as you may already know, it's Golden Valley, Billings, Dunn, Stark, Slope, Hettinger, Bowman, and Adams counties. It's tremendous in size. So we will be seeking our stakeholder group to commit to the project. And we were talking about this a little before everyone joined, wondering how you ended up here, right? What our stakeholder group needs to consist of is representation from every one of those counties. And we want people who are in the arts and in education and in business, tribal members, historians, government leaders, community leaders, school. We have a high school student in Region 4 who's a part of the group. So really, we're looking for representation from all walks of life from all across the region. Do you want to talk about the sites?
So again, ideally rural, no buildings, no people, natural landscape, but that's based on cultural heritage. Who lived there? Who came there? What diverse immigration was there? What are some of the things that people both were up against or came for, as well as what was beautiful about it? And one of the things I think that the stakeholders up in Region 1 talked about was that North Dakota, that perseverance, that ability to try to sustain, and also harshness. There's a lot of conversation in Region 2, which is very, very large also, and encompasses Newtown. So how can you not talk about Lake Sakakawea and the history that's there? And then you come over, say, to Region 4, and you're dealing with a Métis cultural heritage, you're dealing with French, you're dealing with Scandinavian and Icelandic. So there's always a mix of people. Again, as I said before, we're really, really interested in trying to utilize DOT to the best of our advantage, which means money if we find a state highway where there's a beautiful site. But what we've seen, the stakeholder group in Region 1 literally met for 2.5 years. Welcome to COVID, right? So we were friendly faces. We got to know each other really well. The first time that we met, which was about 18 months into the process, it was as if we were having a reunion because everybody had gotten close and knew each other. And that's really what we're hoping can happen in every single region. Region 4, Northeast, they had a decision made in 10 months. The reason I think they had a decision made was that there were several historians on the stakeholder group, and they came to the table with more information. So it wasn't like it had to be researched all the time. It was available. Region 2 has been slow to form, slow to come to decisions. We had to really kind of point to the issue of not in Minot. It's not about being in a city. It's really about finding a place that everybody can agree to. Let's go on.
And that's kind of the beauty of the multiple county thing too, is we're building that network through this project. So there's kind of, this is one of our goals. The idea of this project is not just to create art, but it is also this network, the strengthening cross-county networking and regional collaboration. Because we tend to think in our own communities or our own little local networks. And there's really so much strength just outside of that in our nearby counties. So in addition to that, we'll be promoting tourism for in and out of state visitors. We do expect these sites to attract tourists, honestly. We will heighten the visibility of North Dakota's creative sector and talents. Although, as we found, the artists don't have to be from North Dakota, but many of them will be applying. We stimulate economic activity and development in rural areas of North Dakota, which is one of NDCA's prime goals, is to serve for economic development in rural Dakota. And then we build stronger arts communities. There's another piece to this, so we'll come back to that later about training artists. Actually, no, it's right here. I thought it was on a later slide. We invest in North Dakota artists by providing professional training and support. Part of Arts Across the Prairie is that the artists selected will provide a professional workshop for 10 or 12 or however many we can budget for North Dakota artists to learn how to do what they do. And whether that's these large installations, whether it's mosaic work, maybe the design process, they will get that hands-on experience from a professional as part of the program. And finally, we celebrate and leverage the existing assets with an infusion of creative expression. So that's a beautiful way of saying we highlight what you already have. If you have museums and parks and maybe state historic sites or markers, restaurants, places that you want people to come and spend a few hours, this is an opportunity to draw them and cross-promote.
Let's go on. All right, so stakeholders, what are we looking for? So again, diverse individuals, all counties must be represented. If the stakeholder group is, you have a number of, say you have 6 counties and you start with 12 people because you have 2 people from each county, that would be wonderful. But it's also making sure that you have the diversity of people. So we really want to make sure, again, that everybody can be represented in some way or another. I want to go back to the fact that we do have a student on the stakeholder group in Region 4, and she actually has been incredibly helpful in terms of giving us ideas and thinking about things in a different way. Stakeholders have to commit to a once monthly meeting over Zoom, especially given our winters. That's how we're going to meet. You would help facilitate a site selection. So we would ask each of you to come to the Zoom meetings with some ideas of places. What's really interesting is, and this has happened several times already, is that we get into a conversation of, well, I'd like it in this county. I'd like it in Divide County. I'd like it in Williams County. Well, what ended up happening in Region 1, it couldn't have been farther away. Like, I am not kidding, it's the Canadian border. So now we're having conversations with the stakeholders in Region 1 about how do we tie together those 3 counties? How are we going to move people from the border through the other 2 counties that were involved in the project? What are we talking about tying together? We steered away from restaurants, but we're very clear that we want to name towns. We're very clear that we want to name parks and historic markers and historic sites and arts organizations and any public art that exists. We started exploring how we do that. Is it through an online walking tour, kind of a web program? Are we using QR codes? Somebody said a lot of the people who travel in North Dakota are older and or not with their families. So we thought, well, then we have to print something too. We have to make it accessible. It's important to engage community members and leadership. And one of the things that happened up in Region 1 was that there was an initial stakeholder group, and then there was some fall off. And then a whole new group came in when it came time to look at the artist selection process, how to read the proposal, how to make a decision about the budget that had been submitted, what could possibly happen, and then select the artist. And definitely really look at celebrating the regional cultural heritage that exists out in Region 8 and spread knowledge about this program.
There's an educational piece that we keep kind of weaving in through the different regions, because the 8 pieces are connected to each other through the program, and then to all of the other art pieces, as Kim was saying, within the region. So it's kind of macro and micro at the same time.
I think I just want to say about education that it's kind of step 2. Like, we see that schools could be involved in this for field trips, but it's first we have to get it made, and then we're going to talk about how we get kids and schools involved. So creative placemaking is really about the meaning, identity, understanding of where we live. And it is very, very different than public art. So these are placemaking projects. These were done in community, by community, for community. I know every single one of you has seen The Enchanted Highway, right? And Gary started this project and he had this brilliant idea. And in some ways, it says a lot about your region. It crosses the regional lines, but all of these pieces were done, and all of these pieces that we wanted to show you are really much more placed in rural settings. Some of them, like the native sculpture in South Dakota, is very well known.
Mm-hmm. And that's the idea of where placemaking can, I don't want to say put a place on the map, but it does kind of add to the identity of a location.
Well, it absolutely comes out of the identity.
Yes. Yep.
So it humanizes that environment. There's an intersection. We really want to talk about the past, the present, and what's going on in the future. And we really feel strongly and have seen it working up in Region 1 and 4, particularly because they're underway, that it's helping those communities to connect across county lines. So I think we talked about this already, but basically it allows us as a state arts council to do more than just give out grants. We really want to be involved in rural development and economic development. We want to work with tourism. We want to help your communities to thrive. And we feel that doing that through art and culture is the way to go. It's going to be community driven by the stakeholder groups. I think that you definitely build civic pride. It definitely affirms the uniqueness of your area and strengthens the identity of the people who were there. And it also is really becoming a national model for creative placemaking. I've already been approached about, can we talk about this? Can we write about this? And I'm thinking, yeah. And then they say, what does it look like? And I finally feel like I can say, oh, now I have some ideas and we can show people what can happen with it.
And that's the end of the presentation. So this is our contact information. I'm the special projects coordinator, sort of handling the communications around this. So feel free to reach out to me at any time at the email on the screen.
So let me give you a little bit more factual information, and maybe we can go back to full screen of you. Great. So it's a long project. It is not for the faint of heart. That's what I have to say. But it's so exciting that it keeps me going, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. I've also been able to see more of North Dakota than I ever knew existed, which I think is great, and meet so many wonderful people who have like-minded views of their homeland. It's about $5 to $7 million. We have $1 million from the North Dakota State Legislature, specifically earmarked for maintenance. So we had money to maintain these works before we even had money to build them, which is also an oddity about the legislature that I don't quite understand how that happened. We have a partnership with tourism So they will both in kind and financially help to market this to North Dakota tourists as well as out of state tourists and international. We think that it will be a really beautiful little tour of North Dakota because you will see 8 major installations that represent that area, and then you'll be sent to explore everything else in that region, the other counties. We have, as I mentioned, the relationship with Department of Transportation. I'm going to say that's coming in at about $500,750,000. What's interesting is that for Riding Rock, where we're on a county road, boy, are we on a county road. It's a gravel road and it doesn't have a lot of maintenance to it. So we're working with them to say, so maybe can you use some of your state money on this, help the county to maintain that road? And then we talked about byway signage. So they're actually really involved in that and they're going to help us with that. So then we have the relationship with the National Endowment for the Arts. There's a variety of partners, Meadowlark Arts Council up in Region 1. In Region 4, we're working with the Public Arts Commission in Grand Forks. In Region 2, we haven't really decided grant partnerships yet. The reason we need grant partners in each region, and this is a little cumbersome to think about. I am a state arts agency. I already get money from the National Endowment for the Arts. I can only get my one grant that funds the agency. So in each region, we're doing training in grant writing, partnership, budget development, and a team on behalf of the stakeholders will apply for the federal money or to the other groups that we can go to fundraise for. We got money
with our help, yes. So we're not throwing you in.
And then we are, in terms of, so that's the money, that's the time. Each project is about $150,000. I'm being, when I say I'm approximating because there might be a little bit of difference in each region. With that 150,000, about 55 to 65 will go directly to the artist for concepts, drawings, plans, etc. And the remaining money will be for fabrication. So what can it be made out of? We don't know. That's going to be up to the stakeholders in the request for proposal to talk about what are the influences in that region. Again, I'm going to use Region 1 as an example. Water or lack thereof, harshness, resilience, farming, the native history that exists in that area. And all of that was translated into writing in the request for proposal.
So
when the artists get that, when we help send out the request for proposal, then they have to translate that into a visual that they send back to the stakeholders. So did they capture what the stakeholders were thinking about? We had proposals where there were tall things with things coming off them, and some of them were moving, and then there was one that was more like a native gathering circle, and there were a lot of different designs, but it's how the stakeholders verbalize that, how the artist interprets it, and then in the interview process, you get to talk to them and ask them questions and say, would you be open to a change, or what do you think about? Because maybe they didn't get it right.
We asked in Region 1, we had to ask, are you sure that glass isn't going to start the grass on fire? We just logistical questions, all kinds of things. Yeah, there was a lot of mosaic up there.
The tall one that had things sticking out of it, I'm thinking, how far down into the ground do we have to go to make sure that the wind doesn't take it down? Mm-hmm. Right? So then for the stakeholders, it's also about So do we need structural engineering? Do we have to think through these whole things? So we hope that in the process, and believe me, the Arts Council does not know everything. I am learning as I go. I have a network across the country now who I call up and I say, I have to do a request for proposals. Do you have one I can model after? So we got 10 and then we narrowed it down. One other thing, the beauty of not going through the Arts Council in terms of the grants or the request for proposal is you don't have to deal with all of the bureaucracy that goes with it. So it's a little bit of an easier ride. I would like to let you ask questions. Don't be shy. Janelle, is that you? Who's on iPhone 8?
I believe that's Kimberly.
No. It says iPhone 8. Who is that? That's you. Who are you?
Me?
Ah,
Hi.
Janelle? Who? Can you tell me your name? Person who just waved. Can you tell
Oh, me?
us?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Myra Klein.
Hi, Myra. Okay.
How
Would
are
you put
you?
Good. You put your name and your email into the chat
Yes,
for us?
I can. I'm sorry. I'm having technical difficulties in my house. So,
Oh, no worries. Okay, so is this exciting? Does it interest you?
this is very interesting to me. I have one question though, and Stefan, it's kind of a personal question. How does one get on the stakeholder group?
That's why we're here.
Yep,
Okay.
one says yes, please. One agrees, yeah.
And what we'll do is we there are 3, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 of you on the call right now,
Okay.
right? So the stakeholder group is probably going to end up being around, it'll start at 15 to 20. It won't stay that big. There will definitely be a drop off over time. It'll region 1 ended up at 12, region 4 ended up I think at 14. But again, region 1 just peaked again and the numbers are going up because now it's a real thing, right? So the number of the stakeholders is not as important as making sure that we have really diverse representation. We really want to have a wide variety of ideas. We want each county represented. We want artists, teachers, businesses. We want Native voices, historians. A student would be great, but you got to be all spread out. So to be a stakeholder, express your interest. As we start to gather names, we'll start to plot you on a little map to see where you're from and if we've got our bases covered.
Okay.
Once a month meetings on Zoom.
Okay.
So then we'll put together an idea and present it to the group, or
No, what you're going to do is you're going to present places, locations. Like we should do it off this state highway. There's a really interesting rock formation there, and we know that there was a battle at one point. We don't, again, think about rural. So no buildings, no people. Vistas are amazing. No, there's no question. And when I say vista, I mean, I think we're talking also about, you don't have mountains down there in Region 8, not really. You've got this beautiful expanse of land. That's a vista. But you're going to be looking for places. No buildings, no people. So one of the groups came back with a lot of historic markers and a lot of little small towns, and we were like, no buildings, no people. So it's, you go, you hike, you take pictures, you share them with the group. We have a lot of discussions about cultural history, heritage, travelers, natives. immigrants, agriculture, whatever. Trucking, you've got a massive amount of trucking where you are because of the way the highways go, right? So that kind of traveling in and out. Well, we would talk about all of it, and it really, really takes some time. So you won't have a decision at your first meeting. You'll have a decision in 6 to 8 months because we're only meeting once a month. So it's about everybody bringing ideas to the table and looking at pictures. And then we have a road trip and we plot out on a map and we drive around and we look at our top like 7 or 8 choices. And what's fascinating is that there's almost no discussion after that. When we're together on the tour and you look at all the spots and you start to go, you can see it from the state highway, that's good, but it's a little too close to that town. And oh, we can bring this part of the story in here. It almost crystallizes when we're together on the site visit, but that won't happen till next spring.
So, right, the stakeholders are, because Kim and I don't know every county in the state. We need you with your local expertise of locations, of the right people to talk to, about those connections that we need locally.
What else can we answer for you?
So-
You can be a stakeholder and you can be an artist that applies for the project. At that point, you would no longer be a stakeholder because there would be a conflict of interest. But certainly leading up to it, that's a possibility.
So no buildings, no people, like miles or feet, or like how far from, say, a farmer's land or something?
Well, so
Or, I mean, like there's a farmer who lives over here. It's 50, 100 feet, whatever.
okay, good question. Jessica, can you show the potholes again for Region 2? Let's just bring up that picture and I'll explain something. So the state highway is important. The further we get off the state highway is going to be more difficult because they may actually say to us, no, we can't go that far in. They also have to have a particular,
There we go.
the right of way has to be the right of way. So if the highway is coming down here, the center, right? And you've got the 2 lakes on either side, place where 3 of us are standing is private property and it's farmland, but it's not used farmland. So that's very important. We're not going to take away any agricultural property at all. So the first thing we have to do is talk to the landowner, and they would have to be willing to do a, long-term lease or a right of way for this to go onto their property. So approximately where the 3 people are standing, it's probably 75 feet to the road. You can't quite tell, but there's a curve there.
Okay.
So again, all of this has to be worked out. And we won't know it until you guys settle on a property, on a place. And then we start investigating.
So some of the places in Region 4 that they looked at were, what was it? The old, no, it wasn't Region 4, it was Region 2. The old abandoned rest stop was one that they kept calling it, where there had been the plan to put an installation of a rest stop with the drive-through and everything. And so this infrastructure was there, but it just,
the site they decided on.
right.
And the reason, why they decided no, was interesting. The state highway was a little too close to the property. There was not like it, and it wasn't idyllic, and there was a railroad track on the other side of the state highway, and it wasn't Amtrak, because I would have welcomed Amtrak. They could say, look, there's some installations in that field. Let's get off at the next stop and go look at them. but that's not what happened. So let's hear from you. Other questions, other thoughts, things that we've said that are not clear.
So is it preferable to use land that is already like state owned or anything like that? There's no.
Wherever you all land and you come up with a first, second, and third choice, that's what we're going to look at.
That's what we see, who owns it and what we can do from there.
The state has lawyers,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. We can negotiate a lease. So
Yeah. And are you always involved as facilitators in any meeting of our region?
Yes.
Yep.
We handle agendas and minutes and all that business. Yep.
We
And
get it.
I do the coordinating of the Zoom invites. Yeah.
Get everything set up. So we're kind of like the architects behind the scenes, but you guys get to put this together. This is going to be the vision that you have for your region across county lines. That's the most important thing. And I guarantee you'll have the conversation about, I want it here.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. We'll get through that.
You mentioned how long it's taken the other regions to get up and running. Is there a cap time frame that you want to keep in mind, like 3 years, 5 years? I mean, obviously you don't want to drag it out that long. Ideally, it'd be great to get it done in 10 months like that other group, but is there a cap or a time frame that you guys put out there just to keep the ball
Michelle,
rolling?
it's kind of interesting. COVID, which we stopped everything, right? Dead in its tracks, everything stopped. As soon as COVID started to lift a year ago, in that vicinity of the fall, Region 4 jumped on, and now we've got Region 3, Region 8, Region 6, all happening at once. So
Okay.
I must say that my original estimate was 5 years from 19. I think it's 7 years only because COVID took that chunk of time out.
Okay. Good deal.
With the weather, of course, we can't do certain things during the winter. So it depends on how the timeline falls. This is a great time for us to meet and discuss ideas, but it's not like we can go look at sites in the winter. We can't break ground.
Although we have, and also drone usage, please, if you know people who have drones, send them up and take pictures of property because again, in the winter, it's kind of harder to see.
Yeah. So it depends how things kind of line up, but yeah, everything's moving faster now than it was for the first group.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
And I think the trick is now, who do you know? Who do you think would be beneficial to join us? Kimberly, you were going to say something. No? Paula, you're back.
I was just gonna ask if, there were like, I think there were about 40 people that were invited to the Zoom meeting. Had any of the others that aren't online expressed an interest of being involved?
Yes, which is why we're recording the webinar. So we'll make sure that they get access to it and then we'll follow up with the same questions with them.
And I will also say that the recording won't be available till Monday or Tuesday, only because we've got an accessibility convening tomorrow and it takes a while for Zoom to do its magic and then we transfer it to the website.
So yes, not immediately, but we will get it to them. And then, I mean, really, as far as numbers, if everyone who attended here tonight can think of one other perfect person, we're pretty much there. So just getting out, getting that net, that wide net.
I have a suggestion in our community of Mott. Kevin Carvel is a historian, and he does a lot of family. He has his Czechoslovakian background, but also the Germans and the Norwegian people that immigrated to Southwestern Ontario. He'd be a real good resource. And I'm sure Myra did help connect you with him.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah. And yes, looking around at the group, we probably should invite a man. I guess.
Or two.
And then I had a
Maybe.
thought too about a young man that I just met at a art display at the Oktoberfest in New Leipzig. He's from Hettinger and his name is Nick Feller. He does leather crafts. Do you know who he is, Kathleen?
And where is he from?
He's a homeschooled young man, about 18, 19 from Hettinger.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Nick Feller.
All right.
Putting down Nick Leathercraft Hettinger, and I didn't spell any of it right. So,
But yeah, just real quality work there. And fine
okay.
man.
We love fine young people. Again, I will say that student in Region 4 has been a crackerjack.
Mhm.
She's just been wonderful. She brings a whole different perspective. So it's been lovely. So, and you don't have to tell us now. You can shoot Jessica an email and we'll keep the list. We'll make sure everybody who wants to be involved can at least come to another meeting and see how the first meeting goes. But you got to commit to, that's the meeting where we say, what's the most regular time for you to meet? When can the most of you get together? We've been doing 4 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon because it's at the end of the workday. You get to choose your day of the week or whatever. We could do something during the day, but most people have jobs and it's harder for them. So what other questions? What other thoughts?
What else do you want to see in the first meeting other than just when we can all get together? What should we plan on? Should we plan having a couple of areas already mapped out by then? We've got a month, right?
Well, I'm going to say that we probably will meet between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we would have like another meeting between Thanksgiving and Christmas so that we kind of avoid the holidays. And then we would start to meet regularly in the new year. As to what you have to have ready, I think the most important thing is to gather people.
Okay.
And to start to think about your region, your counties, what are the connectors, what's the crossover, what are the differences? But I don't think you have to have any sites in mind yet.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. It's like just a little, what can we look at?
Yeah, I think most importantly, let's think about how we pull this group together. So we have a good group that wants to talk to each other and learn from each other and share.
Perfect.
I'm willing to give this presentation 3 or 4 more times if I have to, but that's why we have the recording. So hopefully we can get them on board. But yes, let us know.
Cool.
Anybody else? Judy, Kim, anything?
I want to thank Kim for your hard work getting this put together. She was the one who gave us all of your names. We had a few grantees that we sent to in the region, but Kim was the one who had the list. So thank you.
She's a good board member.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Okay. Because I'm on both sides of it. I really like the idea of being an artist and coming up with something awesome, but I also really want to be a stakeholder. So in the event, if I were to put in, I don't know what the wordage, it just disappeared out of my brain. If I said I wanted to do
Submit a
this
proposal.
project
Mhm.
and that I was declined as the artist, could I come back in as a stakeholder? Or do
Yes.
I do this? Okay. Because I
Yeah,
don't want to
there's-
like be completely booted out.
No, I think at the moment that you decide you're going to put a proposal in, you're out. If you're
Okay.
not selected, you're back in. I want to say something about North Dakota artists, which we kind of we talked about briefly, but this training that we're going to provide. So every artist that's selected has to do a training that's written into their letter of agreement to train North Dakota artists in the particular style. So again, is it mosaic work? Is it metal work? Is it wood? Is it sculpture? Is it land work? We don't have any idea yet. What we do know is that these are large and that the person who creates them has to have some technical background in working in exterior large scale installation. We anticipate that the first few may not be North Dakota artists because a lot of our North Dakota artists have that kind of training or experience. It's just that simple. It's not a bad or a good thing. It just is. But by training them along the way, so by the end of the 8, if we've trained 10 in each region, we now have 80 artists in North Dakota who can apply for and help plan all other kinds of artistic and creative work with other communities. And another thing that's happened, and it's happening in Region 1, and I think it's going to happen in Region 4. If one place is selected and one artist is selected, the other counties are already talking about the sites that they looked at and could they put something there?
Mhm.
And how do we raise the money to do it? So it's kind of this great ripple effect.
That's awesome.
So this isn't necessarily the only project that will end up in this region. This is just this one. Yeah.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah. Anybody else? Judy, Myra, Kathleen? Okay. I so appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessica, for sharing with me. Thank you, Kimberly, for getting us off the ground. We will make sure that the other people get the recording. We need your help in gathering more names.
Putting
Exciting
my
stuff.
email back in the chat there. You're welcome to email me anytime with questions, comments, suggestions on this. I'm your kind of repository for all of that. Okay.
And
Thank you.
let's
This is fun. Yeah, thank you.
let's have one moment of cuteness here. That is the dog who is obsessed with the tennis ball.
Is it still under your foot?
No, she's
Okay.
shooting it down the stairs and then picking it up and shooting it down the
Oh yeah,
stairs.
you can see it now.
Well,
There
we
it is, that's
started hunting season here, so everything is,
Dogs.
oh, yeah.
Hi.
An onlooker. Yep.
Hi.
That's my dad.
Hi, Dad. All right, folks. Thank you for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's
See you
spread the
soon.
good word.
Bye-bye.